Alrighty guys, here is the deal. We're still waiting on quite a few parts for this motor build for Bobby's Evo 10. So we have two options. Option one is to sit around and wait for parts, not really knowing when everything's going to be here to build the motor for the car. Or option two is we don't sit around and we actually make the car nicer. I think you know what we're going to do. So this car has a very, very, very beautiful paint job. It's a Java Black Pearl exterior. We sprayed this car a couple years back, and while it does still need a polish, as you guys can very, very clearly see, this color is so gorgeous. It was definitely one of those things that just got way out of hand. It was never supposed to be this nice of a car. It was supposed to just be like a decent, little Evo 10 Bobby could rip around. And then we did this paint job on it. We're doing a fully built motor in it, built transmission, nice turbo kit. It's getting the works. Now here's the deal. When we painted the exterior, of course we did not paint the engine bay. So the engine bay is the factory Phantom Black, and I'm not a big fan of how the bay is the factory color and it does not match the exterior. It really, really bugs me. I don't think it bugs Bobby as much as it bugs me, but it definitely bugs me a lot. So we are going to be completely repainting our engine bay on this car. Now here's the deal. We are gonna have to re-clear the front fenders because, as you can see right here, that is where we stopped the new paint, that line right there. It's not a good look whatsoever. So we do need to get some base coat applied on the inner lips of the fenders where it meets the engine bay. And while we could burn in the clear on this hard line right here, it is not that much extra work to just do it right and re-clear the whole entire front fender. So that's the deal. We gotta pull the front fenders. This entire engine bay needs to be stripped down. There's not a whole lot of work to get done. And then we need to go ahead, get it all cleaned up, scuffed up, and ready for some new paint. Let's pop the hood off as well, so it's out of the way. I'm gonna try to not get too carried away, repowder coating stuff like the motor mounts and things like that, but I'm not saying it won't be done. I'm willing to do it if stuff is crusty. Nice. All that coolant and that nice engine that pushed all the coolant now all over the ground. All right, guys, we got this engine bay fully stripped down. I wish there was an easy way to get all the wiring out of the bay, but we'd have to pretty much pull the dash out of the car. It would be a headache. So we're gonna leave the wiring in. We can definitely paint around that. But here's pretty much everything else. Knuckle assemblies with coilovers and brakes, ABS stuff, AC stuff, power steering, and all of the random goodies here on this table. Up next, we need to get this engine bay scuffed up, cleaned up, and ready for the paint booth. I'm not gonna do that on the lift, so let's go ahead, get all these parts moved, and get this thing outside. So the first thing we need to do is go through with the greaser and get all this grease and gunk and oil and coolant and all the random stuff off this bay. I will then pressure wash it, and then we can get to scuffing. The bay is degreased and pressure washed. Now the fun part. We gotta spend a couple hours with this red Scotch-Brite and the scuff stuff. This is just like a sandy, gritty cleaning. This just makes it sand easier and it cleans at the same time. So grab some of this for your engine bays. So the engine bay is all cleaned up, scuffed up, ready to go. It's very, very important you don't do this the day of painting your bay because there's so many like little nooks and crannies and valleys and threaded holes and whatnot that water will come out as you're painting. So do it a few days in advance, at minimum 24 hours in advance. Now, my friends, we have a debate trying to figure out what I want to do. So this car was never supposed to be this nice. It's turning out very, very nice. And here's also another problem. We painted the whole exterior. We painted the car complete. Bobby and I thought it would never, never, never bug us that when you open the doors, the door jambs are still the factory Phantom Black. Unfortunately, it does bug us. It doesn't bug us a lot, but being that we're painting the bay, I feel like it's the right time to go ahead and paint the jambs as well. Now, here's the bummer part of this. Have to paint the entire pillar and the quarter panel as well. At bare minimum, just clear coat. Now, kind of like the same concept as the front fenders, there is this hard edge. If you really, really knew what you were doing, could you burn in the clear right there somehow? Yeah, you could. But I'm not no professional, and if I'm gonna take the time to pull the doors, to pull the quarter panels, to pull some of the interior out to get the jambs painted, I probably should do it properly and just go ahead, scuff the quarter panel, scuff the pillar, hit the base coat on the jamb, and then re-clear everything. Make sense? The last thing I want to do right now is to pull the doors, pull the skirts, and do all that fun stuff. But I don't want to hit the booth again. It'd be a very sad day if we got the car all done and then I ultimately decided that we should have painted the jams. So let's just go ahead and do it right now. Let's pull off the doors. Skirts don't have to come off, they are riveted on, but to do it right, the skirt should come off as well. So I got the doors pulled off, the Veris side skirt removed, and got the entire jam scuffed up with some gray Scotch-Brite. We really need to find a stopping point for this car because it just keeps escalating. Of course, we need to go ahead and scuff the quarter panel and the pillar. We won't be painting the roof. Gonna have to pull the rear bumper to get proper coverage on that quarter panel. And if we're pulling the rear bumper, this is how my brain works. If we're pulling the rear bumper and probably the trunk, we may as well just go ahead and finish the job and paint the jam in the trunk as well. Now I know what you're thinking. That does not matter whatsoever. But if we're going as far as painting all the jams, painting the bay, this whole chassis effectively is getting repainted besides the roof. There's no sense whatsoever. There's a very, very clear line where we can break away and not spray the roof, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm not touching the roof. If we're painting the whole entire chassis, we may as well do that trunk jam as well. It's gonna make masking easier, and it's really just gonna complete the paint job on the car. Man, I wish I would have done this from the start. It would have been a lot easier, way cheaper, because this paint material is very, very expensive. It is a PPG, full PPG paint job on this car. So having to redo even just like the quarter panel and pillar, that alone is quite a bit of money in materials, and especially adding in all the jams and the bay. That adds up to probably a couple grand in materials for this paint job. But like I keep thinking and keep saying, if we're gonna make this thing nice, let's just take it all the way to the end and make everything truly nice. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Let's get back to scuffing up this paint. Let's complete this side. We gotta do the pillar, the quarter panel. I don't know if I'm gonna get around to pulling the trunk and rear bumper today, and I still need to go ahead and pull the whole entire driver's side apart as well. It never ends, man. It never freaking ends. I need to pull the rear bumper, taillight, and trunk to get the side complete, but other than that, this whole side is ready for paint. The only thing I can think about this whole time I'm sanding the side down that we just painted not that long ago is how I regret not doing it right the first time. But hey, I guess that is how you learn. On the exterior panels that we already painted, I am hitting it with 800 grit first, 800 grit sandpaper, and then finishing it off with the gray scuff pad. The reason for hitting it with the 800 grit is so that it knocks down any sort of orange peel that is on the panel. If we were to just Scotch-Brite it and leave that orange peel on there, when we go to clear it again, we would stack on top of that orange peel, making the orange peel even worse, which would not be fun to take care of later on. So 800 grit, and then the gray scuff pad. This whole side is perfectly flat now. 800 grit takes out the orange peel just like that. So it's super, super quick. One more thing I'm trying to decide and decipher on is the windshield. Rear glass is super easy to mask off, but the windshield, we have this rubber seal. So I don't know if there's a good way to tape that seal up and out of the way. Of course, I don't want to paint right up to the edge of the seal. Either pull the seal and somehow get it back on later, tape it up and out of the way, or third option, of course, just pull the glass back out of the car, which I don't want to do that. But if I need to do that to do this right, of course, you already know, I'm definitely willing to do that. I thought I was going to make a little bit more progress today. I just talked to the paint booth that I will be spraying this car in. That got pushed back a few days, which is good and bad at the same time. It's good now that I'm not in a rush, but it's of course frustrating because I really want to get this thing in paint and back together. The shop is turning into a freaking mess everywhere we look. Bunch of motor parts on that table there. We have an EM1 that is unfortunately currently being used as a storage table. Torn apart transmission, table full of parts there, table full of parts, ground full of parts, and now I'm starting to stack the door, or not stack, but set the doors in the back of the shop, side skirt up there, front bumper up there. We got a lot going on with this car right now, and I cannot wait to get it in paint so we can get half of the shop cleaned up. As soon as you get the motor built, that'll be nice, but it'll all be worth it in the end. This thing is going to be pristine.